Good morning. We're going to go ahead and begin. There's a little delay with some folks getting over from the basketball rules meeting. So there may be some other folks trickling in here in just a moment. But would like to welcome you to our second coach-to-coach presentation this week. And we've got two speakers this morning. Amy Castle, Assistant Director at the OSSAA from our staff, will be speaking on social media and education-based activities and how all that kind of works in with player relationships. And then we were very, very fortunate that we were able to I guess, talk into, or I know it wasn't 2 out of 3 falls, because none of us can beat him, but Coach John Smith, the head wrestling coach at Oklahoma State University, will share a few things with us on leadership here after Ms. Castle finishes up. Education-based activities is a huge part of what we do and what we're about. That's going to be a big push from our office this year. Mr. Jackson and our own Van Shea Ivan have put together a little short video clip, kind of a commercial, if you will, about education-based activities. Mr. Van Shea Ivan, who currently was this past week inducted to the Oklahoma Coaches Association Hall of Fame. This Van Shea Ivan right here. So, I'm going to push the magic button there, Ms. Castle. We'll see the little short commercial on that, and then Ms. Castle will kick us off.
I'm Van Shea Ivan with the Oklahoma Secondary School Activities Association, and joining me today is our Executive Director, Mr. David Jackson. Now, last year the OSSAA had a sportsmanship campaign that went over really well. It was targeted to the schools, to the players, to the coaches, to the fans, the administrators, and even the officials. This year we're going to continue the sportsmanship campaign, but we're also adding another point of emphasis. That would be education-based activities. Now, explain to me how education-based activities became this year's point of emphasis.
We wanted to place emphasis on education-based activities. Number one, that is what we're about. It's not just something that we've developed this year, but it is fundamental to what we do in our activities. We absolutely want to provide activities that students enjoy, but we also have to remind them that they are students first. Right. And we want to keep that reminder out in front of all the other stakeholders, those students' parents, the administrators, their coaches and directors, because they are essential in providing the kind of activities that we want our students to be a part of in our education-based activities.
So at the end of the day, what is the ultimate goal for education-based activities?
Number one, we want our students coming away when they're finished to be able to have fond memories 20, 30 years later, to be able to look back again with fondness of the times that they participated in those activities when they were in high school. Secondly, we want and we understand that because very few will go on to have college careers or go on to the Olympics or have professional careers, the majority of the students that participate in our activities are going to be done at the high school level. So after they're finished, we would like for them to be able to be an individual that, because they participate in those activities, are competent, that they are confident, that they can go out and in whatever field they go into, that they can have the skills to do whatever is asked of them, partly because of their participation in our activities. We think that they help develop a sense of community for those students, which will give them an advantage in working effectively in groups on their jobs. And then probably most important is we think that by participating in these activities that they can become people of character, which is going to impact every area of their life. So that's what we're trying to emphasize again to all the stakeholders this year and in the years to come.
Thank you so much for explaining that to us. And I want to remind everyone, if you ever have a question for any of the staff members here at the OSSAA, just give us a phone call at 405-840-1116. And please visit our website at www.ossaa.com because there's a lot of great information on there as well.
Well, I certainly cannot say that any better than those gentlemen said that so articulately on that video. But we are really promoting the education-based activities within our high school environment this year, and we're asking you to join us in that effort in promoting the high school athletics. There is room at the table for everyone. We aren't saying that club activities are not an important aspect of the student athlete's life. They certainly are. The recreational activities, the church leagues, everything that our athletes involve themselves in all have a place at the table. There should be a distinction, however, amongst those activities, and we feel like that's what we wanted to do this year. We want to help create that distinction. This is the long version of what education-based activities mean. And I know you can't see it all, but it's available to you, so you can look that up on our website. It's in manuals. It's all over the place right now. But what we want to certainly emphasize with this message is your role in this process. And your role is paramount to us executing and seeing the results that we're looking to see through education-based activities. And of course, with anything, there are goals. With education-based activities, we are trying to enhance participation. We are working toward minimizing risk for our student athletes, and we are trying to enhance their performance and then, of course, measure success. And as you know, success can be measured in many, many ways. It's not just wins and losses. So we're asking you to pay attention to that. The ultimate goal here, as Mr. Jackson so eloquently said, is to provide students that are competent, that are confident, that have a moral compass that is worth sharing, and then of course to be entrenched in their communities, whether it be their school or the community proper. This is a huge task, trying to make a distinction, trying to promote these education-based activities while we try to coexist with the other activities isn't always an easy task. And there certainly is one huge barrier to us achieving this goal. And I would say that that is social media. It is present. It is something that we need to live with. It is something we actually need to embrace. We always hear about the downside of social media, and this is happening because of social media. Well, I say to you that if this can happen because of social media, then these very positive things can happen and be enhanced through social media. So I'm going to give you a very short version. Don't panic. I know when I go to church and my pastor gets up and says, I have 5 points that I'm going to make to you today. In my head, I'm doing math, because my guy, 10 minutes per point. So I know how long this is going to be. This is not 10 minutes per point, I promise you. But I think these are things that if you will be cognizant of in your social media life and share with your students to be cognizant of in their social media lives, we can make social media something that is a positive production tool rather than the opposite of that. So the first one is privacy. And you have privacy settings on your account. And securing those privacy settings is certainly something that you should be aware of. But at no time should you have the false illusion that because you secure your privacy, no one else can see what you are doing. That just isn't true. Now, securing your privacy will protect you and your identity. It will protect your unintended audience from seeing what you're saying. You should not allow students to view your content. It isn't a good idea to be friends with your kids in a social media forum while they're still in school. Unless, and of course, you're using that as a communication tool, and we're going to talk about how to do that appropriately and properly. Be respectful. That is true in all realms of life. It isn't any different than your social media life. Everything you post is carved in granite. There is no such thing as a Snapchat disappearing in 10 seconds. A Snapchat disappears from you in 10 seconds. Text message logs can be subpoenaed by courts, and nothing ever goes away. And I'm certainly not making any kind of a political statement whatsoever, but I will tell you that POTUS uses social media, mostly in the form of Twitter, to convey a wide variety of messages, and at times, not just POTUS, others, at times those messages are regrettable, and so they are deleted. They are deleted from you being able to access that from that point forward, but they never truly don't exist again. So be mindful of that. Be respectful. Of course, no inappropriate content. The content should not be something that you want on next week's news, you want to be talked about 2 weeks from now, you want it to be talked about 20 weeks from now, 20 years from now. It is in granite. It is if you wrote it down and it does not disappear. So be very mindful when you are posting content. When you're talking to your team, now many teams I know use some type of social media platform, maybe a closed Facebook page, maybe text messaging, maybe a group text message, maybe a Twitter feed, something of that nature. Consider creating a policy for that before you allow your kids to engage in that. So maybe we create content that only serves this purpose, only has this message. Certainly bullying is becoming more and more and more prevalent in our society and resulting in a lot of problems for a lot of teams and certainly for a lot of teachers, and certainly close the group. Again, you cannot control what happens to content after you post it. So always be mindful of that. You also should be mindful that social media has had the effect of creating others from feeling isolated when you close out those groups. So just lots of things to consider when we're going through this. Avoid oversharing. There isn't anything I like more than to see other people's life experiences on my Facebook feed, see what my friends are doing. But when you do post something, be considerably mindful of who is going to see it. And again, always cognizant that just because Van Shea and I are friends on Facebook, and I know he's going to see something that I have posted, so may other people. If Van Shea then shares that, that's shared with his group of friends. One of his friends shared it, it is yet shared again. So before you know it, this could be in many, many places, and you have that unintended audience once again. Keep your professional life and your private life separate. I can't say that loudly enough. Certainly, you want to share your successes in your private life. You want to share successes in your professional life, but never those two shall meet. If we have professional things to share, that needs to be on the professional side of your life, not on the personal side of your life, and vice versa. Avoid complaining. We live in what's called a hot take culture. So when we see something on Twitter, we see something on Facebook, we see a Snapchat, we see a CNN news feed or a News OK news feed or anything that pops up a notification on our phone, if it's a hot button for us, we've got a hot take on that and we've got something to say about it, and we're going to say that right now. We all need to vent. We all need to share the things that anger us. But what I say is talk to your spouse, talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to your cat, talk to whoever you need to talk to, but let's not have our hot take appear on a social media site. And we'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. Don't get online angry or under any kind of influence. So no matter what your personal opinions may be, no matter how controlled you are, Nobody makes incredibly great decisions when they're angry. I know I don't. Perhaps I shouldn't say no one does. I am less likely to make a good decision when I am angry about something. And of course, outside influences such as alcohol or too much cotton candy, many other things can elevate moods, change moods, and that is not the time to post. That is certainly the time to save yourself. You can save yourself from what they call the internet hangover or internet regret, should you just take a moment to pause before you react. Avoid association with negative virtual friends. Just as you probably are not going to walk down the street with someone that you know is associated with a known crime ring or an axe murderer. We're not going to walk down the street with those people. Your virtual friends are every bit as important as your physical friends. Now, the difference between virtual friends is sometimes we're friends with someone in a social media platform that we don't really know. And our only impression of that friend is what we see on social media. But things they may say or do maybe don't necessarily reflect who you are as a person. So you want to avoid engaging in friendships with people you wouldn't be friends with if you were walking with them on the street. Generate positive content. Make your digital persona one that you want to match your physical persona. So if you are upbeat, happy-go-lucky, skipping down the street every day, that's what you want your digital persona to look like. We aren't supposed to as human beings, but we do. We judge. We judge. And especially when your virtual friends may be friends that you don't really know that well. They're actually the friend of a friend, okay? So things those people say make a determination about how you feel about that person. It's your first impression. It's the old thing our parents used to tell us when we were little. You don't have that second chance to make the first impression. Same is true on social media. So what you post may be the first thing that someone sees about you. Make sure that reflects who you are and who you want to be. Google yourself. This is fun. Has anybody ever Googled themselves? No? Well, I have. And this is what you'll find when you Google yourself. When you Google yourself, you're going to find a lot about your professional life, but it also brings up images. So if you're a coach and you have been in a newspaper story where they've taken that picture of you and you are really intensely coaching, that image is probably going to pop up on the screen. Now, I did take the opportunity to Google Coach Smith this morning just to see what would come up. I will tell you, because I'm certain you didn't know this before I said this out loud, he is much more interesting than I am. It is pages and pages and pages and lots of orange. But this is a very accomplished man. And there wasn't anything in just my quick Google search that I looked at that he couldn't stand up and say, I'm proud of that. I'm not embarrassed by anything you're going to see in this Google search, because he's lived his life in a profile that he can be proud of and clearly been cognizant of his profile as he moved forward. Now, when you Google Amy Castle, you're not going to see very much, because I have chosen a very low profile for my life. I have a Facebook account, I have a Twitter account, I have a Snapchat account, I have an Instagram account. But when you Google me, you aren't going to see posts of me on those social media sites, because I'm what you call just the snooper. So I have those sites, but I'm going on and I'm just watching what my friends are doing. I never invite anyone to be my friend. I'm not that presumptuous, but I accept friendships from requests from others that ask me to befriend them. So just sometime when you have a free minute or you can't sleep, Google yourself. See what you find. See if you are a low-profile person, as I am. If you've got this stellar mark of your life, like Coach Smith, or if you're somewhere in the middle. Just see what you find. You might find out you're very interesting. So of these 10 things, what are we going to do with that? How do we stay culturally competent when things are changing so rapidly? Technology, social media, everything. Malcolm X says, we cannot teach what we do not know, and we cannot lead where we are unwilling to go. And this is the world of social media. Whether we like it, whether we don't like it, whether we think it's a tool we can use, whether we think it's a burden we would rather get rid of and we're just going to ban it from our athlete's life. It's there. And you have to be relevant. You have to be relatable to your players. If you're not, you're going to lose something there. You're going to lose some ground there. So how do we do that? It's not difficult to stay relevant and stay relatable to your players when it comes to social media. You just have to do a few simple things. The first thing you have to do is make an effort. You have to want to. You can't be Keith Castle, who says, now, did you face text that, or do you tweet her about that, or how does that work? He doesn't even have the language. He doesn't want the language. He doesn't care about the language. He is not in a position where he has to. So I happen to be in a position where I have to stay relatable to kids so that they will buy into what we're trying to do for and with them. So all you have to do is make an effort. You should also understand a child's backstory while they're moving and navigating this place. As I said, social media can be a place that generates a lot of negative feelings for a particular student or athlete. I was surprised to learn in my research on this subject, I wasn't surprised to learn that depression is profoundly prevalent in our kids' lives. And we as adults think, you're kids, what do you have to worry about? You may be surprised what they have to worry about. But the added stress of social media and feeling ostracized and left out because of social media posts is leading to more severe depression. And at times, students are thinking, I'm worthless. I have nothing to offer. I'm being isolated. I'm being left out. So this platform that we as adults generally view as just too much. I know too much. I know everything that's going on. A child's reaction to knowing everything that's going on is a feeling of isolation, which is leading to depression. You need to be cognizant of that. You need to be aware of those battles. And then, of course, respect the individual differences of your players. As you know, I'm not telling anything you don't know. You've known this forever. They just want you to care. So stay relevant, stay relatable, care about them. We were at a conference not too long ago, and I heard Coach Whaley say this the other day, and I thought it was probably a little untrue, but really cute. He said, I was a football practicer. Now, he was on a football team at a university, but he calls himself a football practicer. And this is kind of what this guy was like, too. I think, was his name Aaron Davis? At summer meeting. I believe his name was Aaron Davis. And Aaron Davis was just this phenomenal man, just vibrant and full of life. And he played for Tom Osborne at Nebraska. And he, too, was a football practicer. But when you listen to this man talk, you didn't really get that impression from him. I mean, you would have thought he was Johnny Unitas. I mean, he was great. He very, very committed to that craft and for playing for Coach Osborne. And he said this, the reason people respect Dr. Osborne so much and will run through walls for him is because we knew that he cared as much or more about the next 20 years of our life as he did about the 4 years we were going to be eligible for him. Certainly a powerful message. So being culturally relevant doesn't mean you have to operate in cultural relevance, but you do need to learn to navigate this YOLO world. I will tell you this, nothing gives my children more laughter than watching their mom read a meme. Now, if you don't know what a meme is something like this, where you take someone that's very recognizable and you kind of make a joke or a parody out of their normal message. So this is the most interesting man in the world. And he says, I don't always go to McDonald's, but when I do, I'm loving it. So they're taking the McDonald's branding here, and they're taking this man that's known for being the most interesting man in the world, and they're creating a meme out of him. So being culturally relevant means that I understand, I know what's going on, and I can communicate with you probably mostly based on context, not always just because of the way you're saying it. But I will tell you this, nothing rolls my kids' eyes quicker than me trying to be cool. Than them saying to me, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what's going on today, and me maybe looking at them and going, yeah, I feel you. And they will just let the eyes roll. You can use that to redirect to a positive thing. You can use it just to annoy your kids. That's how I use it. I use cultural relevance to annoy, and that seems to work for me. So here's your wrap up here. Set some personal and professional boundaries for your use of social media. Build and maintain those strong relationships with your kids and your players. Stay relevant. Stay relatable. Give your kids the gift of accountability. Teach them to say, my bad. Teach them to be accountable for their actions. And beyond all measure, just care about them. That's all they want you to do. Just care about them. Use social media to your benefit. It doesn't have to be a burden. It doesn't have to be negative. You can make it be whatever you want it to be. And so that's our message to you today. So to get on with the leadership portion, I am so thrilled. I just met Coach Smith for the very first time today, and my first impression, even though I'm a Sooner, is this is a really, really great man. Not only is he accomplished, he's a 6-time world champion. He has 2 Olympic gold medals. He has over 400 career wins, 18 conference titles, 5 national championships, and he's been named Conference Coach of the Year 16 times. This is a guy that knows how to get it done. So with that, I shall sit and Coach Smith will guide you through the rest of this presentation. Thank you.
That was a nice presentation, Amy. You know, as I was listening to Amy, I got to thinking a little bit how lucky I was where I grew up. I grew up in Del City, Oklahoma, and at that time in the Mid-Del area, there were 16 elementaries that had sports. I don't know if any of you guys grew up during that time, but there were 16 elementaries that had sports, and Westland was one of them. And really, my experience was just fabulous. The coaches I was around, really, that was the first time I realized that I wanted to coach. I wrote a paper in the 3rd grade about wanting to be a coach. Wrote another one when I was in high school, and I wrote an essay on coaching in college that kind of told about the goals that I have. But you know what I noticed is so much change. I mean, it's unbelievable change, and I think that, you know, I'm going into my 28th year of head coach, and I'll tell you the truth. The reason I've coached 28 years and I've been the longest tenured coach at Oklahoma State is because I've dealt with change, and severe changes. I mean, changes I don't like, changes that I didn't even plan on talking about change. Watching her presentation, Amy's presentation, I just realized, how much things have changed. Social media, everything, recruiting for me. I remember the cell phone. I said, I'll never text kids. Hell, they won't listen to you if you don't text them. Especially in recruiting. And then they'll never end a conversation. I was up till midnight last night texting a kid that already committed to me. I'm like, I got things to do, and they never end the conversation. And what you realize is that you just got to deal with it. The things that you got to, and sometimes you don't always have to like it. The NCAA came out, and where's this film going? I got to be a little careful. The NCAA came out a month ago and decided that, hey, if a kid wants to transfer out of your school, he can do it anytime. What? So on my team, a kid don't even have to come to me and ask me to transfer, and I give him the okay, or I say no. Now he can just go. Right? In every sport. That's not just wrestling. So there's no accountability. Okay? He just goes to the compliance office and says, I want to be put on a list that I'm open to be able to transfer to any school, and they do it. They don't even have to go through me anymore. So, for the last month, I've had my staff, and we're strategizing of how we're going to deal with this. When you got 40 athletes and only 10 of them start, how are we going to deal with this? And it's over and over again. NCAA rules with money. NCAA rules. I'm not saying that all the rules and all the regulations they come out with are some of them aren't good. Some of them aren't good. Okay, but most of them are good. Financially, every year the school raises tuition. And 90% of my recruits are on tuition fees and books. So if I've got 17 guys on tuition fees and books and they raise tuition, that's a difference in 3% of a scholarship. I just lost 1/3 of a scholarship, and I only get 10 a year. So you have to deal with that. So the changes, and watching Amy presentation, we all deal with them. And how you deal with them, I don't sit around and gripe about them. Some of them I don't like. This transfer rule, crazy. Maybe the craziest one I've seen in the last 15 years. Let's figure out how we're going to win at this, right? Let's make sure that if some kids want to transfer, make sure we get our share of them, because we're going to have to do that. So you just immediately realize that you can sit around and you can gripe, or you can create an environment and create a strategy that it benefits your team and your school. Unfortunately, you're put in that situation. So changes are tough, but just kind of remember, as a coach, over my 28 years, the way I've dealt with them has really kept me in the game and kept us competitive. And I've never crossed the line, I don't think, morally or ethically. I'm a strong, faithful man that does things and believes in his faith, and definitely I guide my program in that manner. Again, I grew up in Del City. I grew up as one of 10 children. My mother and dad are still living in Del City. They have 32 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. And most of them, the boys, are wrestlers. I do have one nephew that starts for the Marlins. Just played in the All-Star game. His name's Jake Remuto, catcher for the Marlins. Played baseball at Carl Albert High School. So I don't know what he was thinking when he didn't wrestle, knucklehead. But I had strong mother and father, no question. And a lot of the things that I do and is because of what they instilled in us as we were growing up. but like I said, my first experience of realizing I wanted to coach came in elementary. Really did. I was around some superb coaches that really cared for us. A lot easier time then, probably. I had a coach named Tommy Chesbrough at Oklahoma State that I realized that I was going to be a coach when I got around him. You know, he was a real addictive personality. You know, I mean, when you were around him, it wasn't all about wrestling. It was about fishing. It was about hunting, some things that you like to do with him. And you know, the one thing that you realize as a coach is that you want to try to create that addictive personality that people want to be around you. You know, not that that people don't want to be around you. Listen, coach is going to be mad. He's going to be this or that. You want to have that addictive personality where kids and especially your staff enjoy being around you. You know, I'm just going to cover my first 3 years. Okay, just think of this. I went from that 6-time world champion, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. You know, balance in my life. I had no balance as an athlete. Okay, my balance was wrestling, and that was it. You know, I'd disappear for months and not talk on the phone to my family, to my parents. I would be lost in the wrestling world, trying to win the next championship. You know, I have no regrets as an athlete of who I was. I did it right. I don't know if I'd ever want my children doing that, going that deep into a process of trying to be the very best. But I have no regret. I wish I had 5 or 6 guys on my team that had an attitude like that. We would win a lot more championships. But I came out of that into being a head coach. I came from 1992 in Barcelona, Spain, after winning an Olympic gold medal, my last event, right to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and named a week later as the head coach at Oklahoma State. And I'm going to tell you, my first 3 years was my toughest years I've ever had. It's still my toughest years I've ever had in my life. I knew very little about understanding the process of coaching. You know, and you think, you know, when you're a 6-time world champion in an individual sport like wrestling, okay, you're taking care of yourself. It's about what you're eating every day. It's about who your training partner, who's going to be at practice every day for you, who's going to be who's the masseuse that's going to iron you out at the end of the week, you know, and where I'm going every week, where I'm training every week. Okay, am I getting better every week? You know, so you just realize that it's all about me, and you go from that to being a coach. And then you have 40 athletes that aren't as dedicated as you were, some of them. Don't go to class, which I didn't know. I just thought everyone went to class. You know, and you start experiencing some things that you just don't have a lot of preparation for. You know, but I will tell you this. I needed that as a coach. I needed that as a person. I really realized how selfish I was as an athlete, coming from being an athlete going to a coach. I realized real quickly that I either was going to change, okay, or I wasn't going to be in this game very long. And the one thing I always wanted to do, and even those first 3 years, I loved the coaching part. I just didn't understand all the rest of it. Right? And all the rest of it keeps getting thicker and thicker as we go through these years. They're more challenging and challenging, but as you know, if you've coached long enough, you grow to experience, and those things aren't nearly as tough as you think. But, you know, those first 3 years, I think it made me a better husband. I think it made me a better father. I think it made me a better friend to some of my friends. It really made a big difference in who I became and who I had to become if I was going to stay in the game. And I think some of you young coaches out there, I know you're grinding it out. I know it's tough. You know, the one thing that, you know, that you get the athlete that's in your community. I get to go recruit my athlete. So I get what I choose to recruit, you know. And I will say this, you don't get everyone you want. Sometimes you got to settle for some less, but I think that the one thing that we got to remember is that don't don't lose your faith in the coaching, especially when it's tough. Just kind of remember that some of these lessons that we're learning, they're lifelong lessons that we can use. And for me, it was a lifelong lesson. I was definitely beaten up during those first 3 years and realized, though, that I love coaching. And I need to get through this. Okay? And what's funny about this is I want you to understand is that during those first 3 years, I won a national championship. Our team won a national championship. You know? But I didn't have the feeling of that you should have. You know? And I realized during those first 3 years, it was as much about myself as it was my team. You know, and that's what I'm saying. Coming out of that role of being a 6-time world champion was tough. I want to just make sure that you guys recognize just one thing that I've done over the years, over 27 years, that I realized is as I got better at it, I became a better coach. I enjoyed coaching a lot more. And that is taking responsibility. You know, as a head coach or as a coach, just learning to take responsibility of the things that are important. You know, for me, family and faith, I need to take care of my family. I got 5 children. You know, and if I don't keep that balance in my life, okay, as a father and as a husband, nothing works. You know, and I think there's been times that it's been tough for me. Like right now, I've got a 9-year-old and I've got a 14-year-old, both of them wrestling. You know, and the thing that I feel a little bit empty right now is I haven't put enough time into them. You know, going to their Little League practices. But we always have that, but they're conscious right there. Those are things that for me, I'll change, and I recognize this year. I thought about it this year as I took my son, my 14-year-old, up to Fargo, National Championship Tournament, and he struggled a little bit up there. He didn't wrestle too great. And I realized, you know what? I haven't put the time into him. You know, I think we always have those things that are always going to be there, but just be conscious about them. Don't beat yourself up. I've learned not to beat myself up. I've just learned to make the change. I need to make the change. I need to make time for them next year. I need to make sure I'm going to practice and going to visit, because you know what? I don't feel good when I'm not doing that. So take care of your family. Take the responsibility of taking care of your family and making sure that for me, it's faith too. You know, I travel all over the world. I've been to Croatia this summer. I've been to, I'm going to Slovakia in a month from now. Hey, don't look at it as I'm lucky. Listen, I go fly in, I go to the hotel and go from the hotel to the gym, back to the hotel, back to the gym, back on a plane, go home. That's what my trips are like. So, I'm a faithful man, and I attend Mass every Sunday, and it don't matter where I'm at. Early in my career, I would skip Mass. We have matches on Sunday. I would find reasons to not go, and it just didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. You know? So if you're a faithful man, take care of your faith. Take the responsibility to take care of it. It's important to you. Make sure you're doing the things that makes you feel right. For me, family and faith is important. And take care of the responsibility. You've got a responsibility of taking care of your staff, the people that you work with. Okay? For me, I create an environment where you enjoy coaching. You know, that's the head coach's job. I think that we create an environment where we enjoy coaching. If I'm going to do this profession for 27 years, dadgummit, I want to enjoy it. I want to go in every day, not with a knot in my stomach. I got enough knots, you know. I mean, you know, you knot up the wins and victories, and those are the times that you know. But when I go into the office every day with my staff, and we have staff meetings to start, okay, there's a couple things I'm looking for. I'm looking for some laughs. You know, children, on average, young children laugh 400 times a day. Adults will laugh 15. 400 times a day. And you wonder, we see it all the time. Oh, that's a happy young child. Well, yeah, he's laughing 400 times a day. What do you think? Right? Laughing's important with your staff, enjoying your staff, and making sure you're creating an environment that if you're going to coach a long time, we got to enjoy this. We got to have fun, okay? And let's create an environment where it's enjoyable and fun. My AD, I consider my AD part of my staff. You know, Mike Holder, he's part of my staff. You know, I include him in. Hey, listen, I know what's important. You know, they shove it down our throat all the time. Football and basketball makes the money. I get it. I get it. Okay? But you're going to be part of my staff. Okay? Because if I'm going to win, I got to have you on my team. You know, so I make it easy for him to be a part of my team. And as coaches, we need to make it easy for our ADs to be a part of our team. You know, especially in a sport like wrestling, or a sport that, you know, that is at Division I, and probably most high schools, is not an incoming generated sport. Okay, we are a sport that at Oklahoma State we come pretty close to breaking even every year, but we don't break even every year, right? But most wrestling programs across the nation don't even come close to breaking even. It's several sports, as you know. Okay, but I think we miss out when we don't bring that AD onto our team. You know, they can do a lot of things for you. And I'll say this, is that the one thing I've done with Coach Holder is I keep him involved at all times. If he emails me, within 5 minutes I'm emailing him back. Okay, he emailed me the other day about 2 of my kids down on the strip. Some kid emailed him and said something about 2 of our kids were down on the strip and did this and this. I immediately got on it, called the strip, called the guy that was at the bar, got all the information, and sent him a message back that that's not true. I said, gave him a number to call if he wanted to follow up with it. You know, so I make it easy for him. I know he's got enough stress and he's got a lot of responsibility. Make it easy for him. Right? And I think that one thing that I've learned over the years is when you show your ADs and show your principals and show people in the public, especially when you're raising money, when you show how enthused you are about your sport and what you're doing, everyone buys in, even if they don't know anything about wrestling. I have donors that don't even come to matches, but they like my spirit about what I'm trying to accomplish on my squad. Not just athletically, but academically, socially. They like what we present. They like when they say Oklahoma State wrestling, they think of discipline. Okay? They think of drive. They think of passion. You know, Oklahoma State wrestling's been wrestling over 100 years. You know, it's 35 NCAA championships. It's the most in any sport in Division I. I'm a small part of that. You know, I mean, I've got a great tradition I was given before I even coached. You know, so just kind of remember, you know, as a coach, you know, people love to be inspired by you making a difference for athletes, young athletes. For me, same thing. Just remember that. It's important that you remember that and make it easy for people to be a part of your program. And again, I'm talking about things that, from a leadership standpoint, that I have gotten better with over the years. Okay? It's not something that I've had to learn. I had to learn to talk. Okay? Let me tell you something. This guy here didn't speak a whole lot. You know, he was dug in. And he was in a tunnel vision, like you know, like I said, I'm not sure it was completely healthy, you know, but I have no regrets. But this was definitely not the coach I needed to be and who I need to be. So what I'm talking about is things that I've gotten better over the years. Expectations, okay? Expectations as a coach. And I'm going to tell you, the reason I'm talking about these things is it's the longevity I want to see. We need more coaches coaching 25 years. We need more wrestling coaches in the state of Oklahoma to coach 25 years. You know, I was coached by Howard Hall from Dell City High School, coached 28 years. I was coached by junior high coach, Tom Moore, coached over 30 years. Delcrest. Don Keith at Delcrest Junior High School that coached 30 years. That was my coaches, right? We need more coaches to coach long periods of time. You know, it's really important. I know that, and what I'm trying to give you is things that gives you that opportunity. Expectations. Okay, my expectations have got to be when I became the head coach at Oklahoma State. Okay, I sat down with my athletic director and I asked him, "What is your expectations of our program?" And he says, "I think you should be winning championships every year." And I thought, I got the job because of that thinking. Okay? And I made it real clear to him. Why would you think that? Why would you think that? We've won one in 14 years. You don't think Tommy Chesbro was not a great coach? He won one in 14 years. You don't think Joe C., the one I replaced, won 2 in 8 years? You don't think Joe C. was a great coach? What makes you think that we should be winning every year? Well, one time, a lot of those 35 championships are still living in the past, right? We had a group of wrestlers up there from Blackwell, Ponca City, and Perry that made up the whole team, right? Well, wrestling caught up. The East Coast figured out a lot of things over time, and things caught up, right? Well, when your expectation's different than your boss's, you got problems. So I had to fix that right away. Because I watched one of my coaches that I adored get fired, and he, listen to this, he went undefeated, okay, in the year, took second at the NCAA championships, came back and got fired. So, that's real important that we're not looking for expectations. I'm not looking for expectations that are lowering the bar. I'm looking at expectations that we're striving to reach up here, but they got to be realistic. And the people around me got to understand. I don't care what the public thinks. They can say whatever they want. I can't control that. But I control my boss. My boss and I got to be on the same page. My staff and I got to be on the same page with expectations. Expectations is what drives most people out of coaching. Is because you're not setting realistic and reality. And we got people above us or bosses above us that think that we should be doing something when it's not realistic. It's not realistic. Okay? But keep in mind that with expectations, your staff need to know what to expect. We got a team next year. I'll go in staff meetings on August the 5th, and we'll meet every day for about 6 hours a day, talking about things that we're going to things that we want to accomplish, the things that we want to do, and in that this is a year that we can challenge for a national championship. It's a tall order. Okay, it's not easy. We'll probably be ranked 4th in the country, 5th in the country. And the one thing I do like, we got 7 kids in the state of Oklahoma that will be starting at the 10 weights. I think that's strong for us. It creates an environment for us, So sharing with my coaches on expectations, I'm talking about individuals, and I'm just going to tell you a quick story real quick. Early in my career, I understood expectations, okay? But I found myself, not living up maybe to the Oklahoma State of Wrestling standard, and I started pushing people too hard, And I realized that if you push too hard certain athletes that are not ready to excel for you, you'll ruin them. You may never be able to see their best part of their athletic days. And once I backed off of that and realized that, I want to tell you a real quick story of one of my student athletes that that came to me from California, wrestled junior college, and transferred into Oklahoma State, and wrestled for me for 3 years, and never placed as a wrestler at the NCAA championships. Okay. 1 year after he graduated, he was ready to quit wrestling. I said, "You're not quitting." I said, "Your best years are ahead of you." 1 year after he graduated, he beat 6 NCAA champions to make the world team, and at the World Championships he finished second. Never placed. Okay, you just don't know when. You got to be careful about pushing hard in your expectations of what an athlete should be doing. Make sure you understand that developmental stage of an athlete. Be careful. Be careful. You push it too hard, too fast, you'll find out that you'll may never see the best out of them. And then finally, one thing that we always have to be aware of and we're always focused on is the culture of our program. Okay? You know, in college athletics, you know, you can real quickly get labeled as a team that parties. You know? And all of a sudden, you know, every recruit and every parent, everywhere you go into, you know, they're saying, well, we hear your team parties a lot, right? I'm not saying that's our culture by any means. You're always working on your culture, okay? You always got to recognize that the culture. I just want to read a couple things, and if you want to look at, there's a great thing that John Gordon put out, johngordon.com. He said 14 thoughts about building a great culture, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to give you a couple of them that really motivate me, and this is stuff that we've done over the last 3 years. Great leaders build and drive great cultures. They know it's their number one priority. They can't delegate it. They must lead and engage in the process. So when you're trying to build your culture within your program, you've got to be engaged in it. Your staff has to be engaged in it. Okay? Not just yourself. I'm going to read 2 more. Culture beats strategy. Strategy is important, but it is your culture that will determine whether your strategy is successful. Right? Everything's culture. The culture, this guy up here, hard work. I'm tough. In the middle of in the heat of the match, I'm going to score when I have to score. Okay? There wasn't strategy involved in that. It was just a culture of attitude. Right? That's what helps. You don't become 6-time world champion because you have a low single leg. Okay? Which, you know, I was known for this particular. I didn't win because of a low single leg. I won because of the culture of who I was on that mat. Right? And we got to remember that culture is everything. And the last one I'm going to share with you is culture is like a tree. It takes years to cultivate and grow, and yet it can be chopped down in a minute. Protect your culture. So we don't take anything for granted at Oklahoma State that we won 35 national champions. We don't take it for granted. We recognize that's a culture that's been built. That when we step out, we hope that people are scared of us, you know, that look at us and they see that orange singlet. You know, that's a culture that has been built up. I haven't completely done all that. But don't think for a second you make wrong decisions. You allow your culture to be demised in some way that it can't be chopped down in a minute. We've seen it over and over again. We've seen great programs in whatever sports, you know. Hey, you know, in 1983, I better not say that. I'm not going to say that. But I was going to say in 1983, there's a team ranked number 1 in the nation, and today you guys wouldn't even believe who it would be, right? It's easy. So just kind of remember, protect your culture. And again, I've been privileged in being able to coach for 28 years, and I feel really privileged that I had some great people that I worked for. And I will say this, that Coach Holder at Oklahoma State, this guy is all about wrestling, you know, and I built that into him. You know, He's there for me. He's willing to give me anything that I need, that's reasonable. He's there to make sure that he gives us the best opportunity to win. But remember, you build that. You build those relationships, and just kind of remember that for us as coaches, it's a privilege. And I think today, more than anything, we're needed more than we've ever been needed. I don't think I'd still be coaching today if I didn't feel like I have a real need. I think it's way more than winning championship trophies. It's way more than winning, personal awards. I really feel that I got a need as a coach in today's world. So I wish you guys a great season, and thank you.
Thank you, Coach Smith, for taking out time of your day to come and visit with us. We greatly appreciate that very much.